Right, I'm going to film two videos back to back, get them out of the way. So this first one is on the failures and successes of the last 3 months, because today's Monday the 31st of March and it's coming up to about 2:30 in the afternoon. And then, just because it tickles me fancy, I'm going to be doing a seeds what I'm going to be sowing in March video, because I've still got about 3 hours to go. Right, so if anyone wants to do a video like this before, again, well, yes, for the first time, hopefully this should be a better one than my normal one in terms of content, in that I've actually got myself a running order. So what I did, I have a playlist with all my videos on it, and I just went through the titles of them and wrote down them as headings, so hopefully this should be fairly structured. So we'll start off with some failures. I bought a camera after the Black Friday event at the end of, is that the end of November? Yeah, Thanksgiving. So I still haven't actually learned how to use that. I haven't read the instructions yet. And also a wireless microphone at the same time. I haven't looked into how to using that either. And there's a possibility that the pieces for that might be all scattered around my room at the moment. So might not be able to get that working properly. So 3 months ago, I only had about 8 subscribers, and most of those were my friends from the horse racing channel. But Richard Taylor saw one of my videos, and he gave me a shout out, and that increased my subscribers from about 8 to 24, and since then it's grown to about 50. So as I like to joke, I need to boot 10 of you to get down to my size of 40. One thing I would say to people, if they got a really small channel with only 10 or 20 subscribers in terms of allotment or gardening, is to join one of the growing challenges, because it's true. First of all, you might actually get a few new subscribers, but also it does actually make you feel more a member of the community, because on a lot of my videos I felt like I'm speaking but no one's listening, and I think that's literally the case, because I noticed on a couple of my videos when I was going through them today, they've only got 2 views and presumably at least one of those is me myself. So I was very disappointed that one was one where I was asking a question, what is this? Because it was I was digging out the subsoil from like a feet under my allotment, and I was wondering what kind of formation of iron or hard pan this was. So that's one of the videos that's only got 2 views. So I built the hugelkultur mound 3 months ago, and that's not really. I think I need to revamp that or do it differently next time, because what I ended up doing is putting the layer of topsoil that I had, which is basically clay, back on the top of the hugelkultur mound. So although there's lots of goodies inside that hugelkultur mound in terms of compost and wood and other decaying organic matter and that, the roots of anything I plant in that hugelkultur mound, they've got to get through, say, 6 inches of the clay topsoil first before they can access that. So I'm not quite sure some of them will do that, because a lot of vegetables, their roots only go 6 inches deep. So that first growing challenge I grew was the Great Onion Growing Challenge, and that, as we say, as we're doing failures and successes, that was a complete failure. I thought growing onions was easy. So when I planted them out a few weeks ago, I was hoping we were going to be having a nice February like we had 2 years ago, because I got my allotment plot 2 years ago, and in the January in 2023, and I spent the latter 2 weeks of January and the whole of February and beginning of March in digging the allotment, and it was like really beautiful. You know, it'd be like 14, 15, 16 Celsius with no wind, sun out. So that's what I was hoping this February would be like. Well, that seems to be like what the April's going to be here this year instead. So it's come along, but 2 months too late. Because my onions, they're all dead now. That was a complete failure. I can actually grow onions. So this is some Spanish sweet white onions that I sowed a few weeks ago. So it's a bit of a failure. I haven't actually planted them out yet. But the roots have actually reached the bottom. So they do actually have a good 6 inches of roots there. So I can't. I don't know. They didn't. They didn't like something. Whether it was the moisture, being transplanted. I put them out into polytunnel too early without any heating, and there it was. Everyone remembers our winter. It was all dull because although the temperature might get up to 8 Celsius, there was no sun. It was 8 Celsius and cloudy and miserable and dark. Another sort of failure is I did a series on how to get wood, and so far it's a failure in that it's incomplete. So I've done 18 out of 20 episodes, and the 19th one where I get that great big log. I haven't gotten around to do that because I want a nice morning where I feel like moving it. And also the problem is that if I do pick it up and bring it, where do I put it? I either put it on the allotment where it's just in the way because I'm not going to be building another hugelkultur mound until the autumn, or I bring it here and it gets in the way in the back garden somewhere. So to be honest, it's better off where it is at the moment, sort of slowly decaying next to the public footpath and the river. And the 20th episode that I was planning to do on that, I'm sort of like, I've always been a little bit anxious about that because I was actually going to go there and for the final episode do a video on what's it called, erectile dysfunction. But the thing is, the problem with that is that I'd have to do the research on it because I'd want the information in that to be accurate. And I'm not the kind of person who does research. Like I like watching videos, and I stopped reading books when I was about 18 or 19. I used to enjoy reading books, and then I went to university, and that sort of put me off reading books. And so I like watching videos, but I won't actually write notes. So me actually writing this out today is actually a bit unusual. The shop-bought, well, it wasn't shop-bought garlic, was it? The garlic was my failure from last year. Was that I didn't do much gardening last year, and my garlic went in really late, and it was really so it didn't actually have all that long a time to grow, so it was quite small. So when I sowed that, I think that would either been at the back end of December or early January, I think. The cloves were really small. I think they're coming along okay now, as well as you'd expect, because I did actually give them a top feed of ammonium sulfate a week or two back, and that does seem to have perked them up a bit, or maybe that's just like the way people's brains work, that you think something's happened when it hasn't really. So I think the garlic's doing okay, and it came through the mulch of wood chipper that I've got there, so that's okay. The shop bought potatoes, which are to your left, so you won't be able to see them. We don't know how they're doing because they've got 4 inches of dried grass cuttings over the top of them. So I'm a little bit worried about whether they'll actually work their way through that, but they ought to. But the thing was, I had this great big bag, and I needed the bag to collect brambles from next door's garden that I was chopping up, because I put a Dalek upside down into the bag, so I need a big bag to put an upside Dalek in to chop the brambles into. So instead of just putting a single bag of grass cuttings over the potatoes, which would have been about 2 inches, I put a double bag. So I'm thinking sometime this week either to uncover them to see how they're doing, or reduce the amount of grass cuttings on there, because tonight's going to be the last coldish night, getting down to 2 or 3 Celsius tonight, and then it should be okay after that. So I think the potatoes are doing as well as they, well, we don't know how they're doing, we assume they're doing well. Broad beans was another failure, like the onions. So like these things that are like hardy annuals, I've been too cavalier with them and think, oh, because they're hardy annuals and they can survive through the winter, that I can treat them in a cavalier manner, don't bother what's it called, hardening them off or not. So they died a death. I'm not totally blaming me for that. I'm blaming anything in sight. I'm blaming the squirrels, I'm blaming the mice, I'm blaming the rats, I'm blaming the pigeons, and I'm blaming the clay soil. With all that rain and weather that we had, that the soil was too cold and too wet. So I'm blaming everything for that. So I've now sowed a second lot of, I've planted out a second lot of broad beans there, and a lot of those I didn't harden off, so they've collapsed and died as well. But quite a few of them are still surviving. So the other lot of broad beans that I've got here to my left, I've been umming and ahhing what to do with them. So I was thinking of putting them in the back garden here, because that way they escape all the pigeons and most of the mice and rats and whatever. And also the soil here is might be more conducive as well. But now that I see some of the broad beans are doing okay at the allotment and they weren't totally devoured by the pigeons, I'm thinking of putting these broad beans out on the allotment. Slug sensors, no one seems to be interested in that, but it's very difficult doing a slug sensors in winter because A, there's not many of them around, and B, a lot of the time the ground's freezing, which is also another reason why they're not around. So if they're not around, you can't collect them. So I should be doing another slug census at the moment. But the problem is that I could put the beer out this evening and then do it tomorrow morning. But then the other one for tomorrow, I've got a pacemaker MOT at 4 o'clock in the afternoon at the hospital, so I might not get home again till about 7, because normally whenever I go to the hospital I go to Tesco as well, shopping afterwards, because that Tesco is quite close to the hospital. So that's like the only time I ever go to that Tesco. So it's like a thing I do. I go to the hospital and then I go to Tesco. So I might get home about 7. Now I think it gets dark at 7:30. So I suppose in theory I could actually put the beer out again tomorrow night, because I do the slug census on 2 consecutive days. The shop bought shallots from Lidl. I think they might have started radiating them now, because they don't seem to have done anything at all. So that's a failure. I've still got 2 bags of those to plant out, so I could just put them out here and see what happens to them. That onion bed in general has been a failure, because I was wanting to put grass cuttings on top. It's just like it just floods, and that's it. It doesn't actually have any wood chips to help soak up the water. I really want to put the wood chips down there. So what I'm planning to do sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks is the onions or shallots which are surviving, I'll move them to one end of that bed, and then the rest of the bed I'll dig again, and I'll probably do the thing that you're not supposed to do and incorporate wood chips. The thing is, I know that I'm depleting the nitrogen, so because I'm depleting the nitrogen, I know that I have to boost the nitrogen by adding something along the lines of chicken manure pellets. So as long as you know that you're depleting the nitrogen, rather than just sit back and nothing's growing, you can do something about it. So we'll see how that goes. Right, I bought grow lights for the very first time this year, because normally I wouldn't actually, I'd start peppers and tomatoes, like say in early March, and I'd sow them in my room, and then I'd do the dance backwards and forwards, bring them from my room at night to the polytunnel in the daytime, and then take them back again, because I'd only just grow some chilies and some tomatoes, and I could survive. I could cope with that, because also in the past I used to put them in the back alcove, so it wasn't so far to walk with the trays as well. But the grow lights have worked well, and because the grow lights have worked well, that means that next year I can actually keep some of the chilies over winter, because I've never done that before, because I've only ever been able to guarantee either light or heat to things during the winter, and I can now do both of them at the same time, both light and heat. What's that? No, I was thinking of Sonne Lumiere, that's sound and light, isn't it? Right. Chilies. I've actually brought some out here. One thing I should say is 2 or 3 weeks ago, when I put my plants out in the front garden for the day to get some light, that was a terrible idea. So you can see what it's done to the top of the plant here. You see that there's the new leaves at the bottom. They're okay. So I've effectively, you know, where you top the chilies to get the side branches out, I've effectively done that by putting them out in the sun. Right, so they've survived. So this is the lemon drop chili, is an example here of that. But it basically killed off nearly all of my Scotch bonnets, which were quite small. So I've learnt the power of the what's that? The early March sun, because the problem was that I work at the weekend, and I'm not able to move things backwards and forwards from the polytunnel to my room, because I'm just too tired and worn out. So all of my plants spent the whole weekend in my room, so I'd spent about 4 days there or whatever, and I just couldn't be bothered to take them to the polytunnel, because I knew that evening I'd have to bring them back into the house again. So I put them in the front garden instead, because it was closer, and that sort of turned out to be a mistake. If it had been a cloudy day, it may have been okay, because the thing was, I couldn't just keep them in my room during the daytime, because only about a third of my plants are actually, because I've got so many plants, only a third of them are actually under the grow lights. So 2/3 of them aren't actually getting any light. So that's why I had to get them outdoors, because a lot of them had gone 4 or 5 days without any light. Right, Turkish aubergine. The aubergine, Turkish orange, I bought one of those out. Oh, this is funny. Oh yes. So I brought this one out because it's actually got a flower. So I don't know whether you can see that. But unlike normal aubergines, this Turkish orange, they have white flowers instead of them being mauve. So they're not as pretty, the flowers. And I've got 43 of these plants. I think needs watering. So that's what Monday's normally my watering day. So I've got into that habit with my polytunnel. Everything gets watered on Monday, and then it gets another check on Friday just in case. And so I haven't actually got around to watering them today because I've been busy with other things. Um, so going back with the aubergines, you know, I've got 43, so normally if I had normal aubergines, I'd be giving some away to other people, in particular Wendy from 3 doors away. But because these Turkish orange aubergines are like a different size and shape, and because they're bitter, and I'm thinking other people A, won't like the taste for them, and B, might not know appropriate recipes to use them in, because I don't think you should cook them the same as other aubergines. I'm basically holding on to all of these aubergines myself. So I'm going to learn how to like eating aubergines over the summer. Right. The snack peppers are doing well. So I've got an example of one of those here. So this is a red snack pepper. So last week I potted up the remainder of the ones that are in the 7 fluid ounce white cups. I potted them up into a red cup. So this is the one. This will be one of the ones that I potted up last week. And you can see these are looking healthy enough. Right, so I think they're a success, which is a good job because I've got 130 or 140 of them. Let's see. So this is allotment of the dead chili challenge. This is for the so ignore the lemon drop. I'm just reusing the cup. So this is actually Eclipse. This is my biggest Eclipse. So this will be for the biggest yield, largest yield. So this is quite small because I only started, I think I started around about the beginning of March. So this plant's about a month old. So I'm a few weeks behind other people's chilies, but we'll see how we go. And also, because these are like an afterthought, and because I've got so many other plants, I haven't actually really been giving these any special attention. So I haven't actually been optimal with that. Going back to the allotment, the cover crops, they were a failure in that, I'm doing them on top of the wood chips, which is a stupid thing to do in the first place. And secondly, the day after I broadcast sowed them, we then got another wood chip delivery, and I thought, well, it's bird in hand's worth 2 in the bush. So I thought I'm better off just putting more wood chip on, because I've got no guarantee that these cover crops are going to be a success. Well, if I put more wood chips on, they're going to decompose and produce, spider, white spider. That they're going to decompose and add to the organic matter in the soil, and also they'll help ameliorate the clay soil underneath. So I immediately messed up those cover crops by putting some more wood chip over the top of them. So, but the good thing is that it got them sowed, which got them out of my head. So I don't have them around anymore. So I think the only cover crops I've got left is I've got some is it sorghum Sudan grass, which goes really tall. I've got some of that left from 2 years ago. So that's definitely for summer. Buckwheat's also for summer, but I think I sowed that. I don't think I've got any of the buckwheat left, and you can always buy buckwheat anyway. You can just buy that from the local shop. Actually, you don't even need to go and buy it from a garden supplier. The back garden, this is all slow work. The thing is, it's not a failure, and I'm not disappointed because I know that things are slow. Because particularly now that I work Saturdays and Sundays, that sort of like wipes out the weekend. And because I work Saturday and Sunday, that basically wipes out the Monday because I'm usually too tired and I'm recuperating from working the weekend. and then I've got things like watering appointment. I've just started having universal credit meetings again. Um, and then there's all the normal things like doing the washing and the washing up and stuff. And also I've got, because of the heart failure, I'm normally only active for a few hours a day, and then I sort of like collapse in front of the computer for a few hours. So the polytunnel's back up and it's survived. What I do need to do, and also having two covers on has worked quite well, but it didn't actually increase the insulation all that much in terms of nighttime temperature, but the things in there grow. So, but with the warmer weather, I need to remove a second cover that's underneath, because that's crappy. That's the one with all the holes in. So I need to take the first one off, take the second one off, and then put the one that's currently the top one back on again. And that way I'll be able to use the windows, because when there's two polytunnels, one on top of another, you can't open the windows to let air in or heat out. So also, yeah, while we're talking about polytunnels, I will be last night I did actually order a second polytunnel, so that's going to be going here on this bit of lawn. So this lawn's going to get chewed up one way or another, and then the polytunnel's going to be put on the top. It's the same size as the other one, 4.5 meters by 3 meters, and with a white cover. I don't like the green covers. It's like a aesthetic thing with me, and also I can't see how a green cover can be better than a white cover. So I've got the one with a white cover again. The peas are doing okay over there. Cold stratification, well, I put some things in the freezer and fridge at the back end of January, early February. That was mainly lavender, strawberry and echinacea. And I still haven't actually sown them. So they basically... yeah, so they've been, they've been under cold stratification for 2 months. Now, if they were just in a seed packet, that might be okay. But like some of them, I put on some damp cloth. So I'm wondering whether they'll have sitting in the fridge on some damp cloth for 2 months. They're probably making them non-viable. But that's something I need to do at some stage pronto. I've got a lack of time over the next 2 days, but it needs to be done in the next 2 or 3 days. The double cup with the red cups, with having one red cup inside another, I should have done a second video about that. But the thing is all that the second video would have done as a follow-up was to repeat the doubts that I had or to confirm the doubts that I had in the first video about that if you don't have something at the bottom of the cup to let the air in and out, it creates an atmosphere for mould to develop. And also, because if air can't circulate, then water can't circulate either. Because of the vacuum effect. So my double cup thing for this year just got totally nullified right at the start because Poundland didn't have any marbles, because they've got an advert that you can get 150 plus 1 marbles for £1, and they just don't have any, and no one else seems to have marbles. So it's haven't I that I've lost my marbles, I just can't find them in the first place. Once I get some marbles, I will start trying to do the double cup method. But the thing is, it's no good for there's no point having it for slow growing plants, because they don't need to get a regular feeding every day or every 2 days. I think it's more for fast growing things and things that you're growing indoors. So I think this may have been another thing that came from the cannabis community, and it's also certainly from the Sunbelt states in America, where they're growing chilies there, and maybe they're like too lazy to pot them up from one thing to another. Because, you know, here, as I've already mentioned earlier, I only water once a week. And if I only water once a week, I don't need to set up a method where I can keep them topped up with water daily. So I think the double cup is a bit superfluous over here. But I'm going to try it in the right kind of environment. And also, this is another thing, is that if you're on top of your game and you're able to pot things up and you've got the space and that, then you don't need the double cup method. So I don't know whether I should have done another double cup video. I should have done it like a fortnight after the first one. So I don't know whether it'd be a waste of time doing it now. Particularly when the points that I've just covered, I did actually pose them in my original first video about the double cup method in British weather conditions. The tomato ER, that tomato volunteer that was growing, that died a death. It's just died. It died, and I don't know why. I don't know whether it was like too cold and too damp and I was over watering it, or I planted it up too quickly into damp conditions, so it was just sitting in damp compost. But see, that's double failure. But it was a failure, and also I don't know why it was a failure. But at that time, in January, February, nothing was growing in that polytunnel. It was just accumulating mould. Everything was. Nothing was working in there. Thermal mass. Well, I haven't actually had any freezing conditions inside the top polytunnel, but it hasn't been freezing outside either. The thermal mass, I think it does actually work for 1 or 2 Celsius. So like last night, we were supposed to go down to 3 Celsius, but my polytunnel only went down to 6. Now, I think that as we're moving into summer, the temperature, instead of like coming down from about 8 or 10 Celsius and then going down and then staying low for a long time, it's coming down from a higher level, and it's coming down later because it's getting dark later. And then it's not actually reaching that low temperature of, say, for example, 2 or 3 Celsius until really late on at night. And then when it does do that, it's only doing it for an hour or so before the sun comes out again. And the sun comes straight towards you there. It comes straight towards the polytunnel. So that polytunnel's good at getting sun early in the morning. So I am going to be messing around with thermal mass again later in the year, but at the moment I don't have time. And well, also, I will have to mess around with it at some stage, because once I once I start planting things in the ground in the polytunnel, I need to remove the weed control sheet, and in order to remove the weed control sheet, I have to remove all the water containers that are on top of it. So if I do move towards planting things in the ground in the polytunnel, then I'll be taking all the thermal mass out and then maybe arranging it in a different way later on. Dance of Death has been main success. I suppose about 98% of the plants have survived me moving them from